How's the sound? Okay, today I think we're going to talk a little bit about end stops. A couple people have been having issues. Really simple. I'll show you how to troubleshoot it real quick. So I'm going to fire up a printer. Right now I have the BL Touch on here, so I'll probably go through a couple of different scenarios. But let's start with going to Pronterface and seeing what we can do. So inside Pronterface, I'm going to connect to the printer, and I'm going to do an M119, and this will tell me the status of my end stops. Right now you can see they're triggered. Let me move this up a little and over, and that over. So I'm going to check each end stop, and I'm going to do it by looking at each of the end stops physically. So I'm going to press this with my finger to trigger it, and then I'm going to go over and I'm going to do M119 again, and it says triggered down here. So that's good. Now I'm going to do the rear of the printer, which is down in here. Hopefully I can find it with my finger. Hang on a second here. I know it's down here someplace. There it is. And I'm going to do the same thing again. And now that says triggered. So the final one being this one right here is obviously saying triggered, but we have to trigger this while it's in motion. So we're going to have to do a Z-Safe homing. This is inside the actual firmware. You have to set it up so it homes the two axi. Then it moves to the center of the actual surface and starts going down. So I'll trigger it. Then I'll trigger it a second time. And that's where it thinks the surface is. So let's check to see what it says. And of course it's a little messy. Right now it wants to do a different type of here we go. Sorry, it just scrolled up on me. Been working on bed leveling for universal bed leveling, so now it says triggered. So this one's kind of hard to trigger just by the nature of it. But there are other types of end stops where you may have to reverse the actual setup here so that it says triggered instead of open, or open instead of triggered. And I'll show you how to troubleshoot that. So I'm going to change it by going into VS Code. It's going to take a second to bring this up, so hang on, it's on the wrong screen, so let me bring it over. Okay, well, let me try this. I may have to restart. Oh, there we go. So here is VS Code. Inside VS Code, what I want to do, I want to change the setting by inverting it. So I'm going to invert. And right now it says that it's false, so we'll change it to true and reload the firmware by clicking right here, and I'll disconnect inside Pronterface, and I'll check on the chat while this is going on. Let's see, Duncan is asking Good evening, sir. Just wanted to thank you for very informative videos. I'm also intrigued by sensorless homing and the Z-axis leveling. So the Z-axis leveling right now, I'm using a BL Touch. If you do sensorless homing with the BL Touch, obviously you're going to use a different stepper, or you're going to clip off the actual pins for that, and they're in the manual on how to do that. But let's see what we got here. So I'm gonna check on the build real quick, see where we are with it. So it's just completed, so I have to power cycle the printer. So I'm gonna reach over, turn it off, turn it back on, and we'll check to see what the status is in Printerface. Inside Printerface, we're going to connect to the printer, and we're going to do an M119. And as you can see now, the Xmin is now triggered. It's not being triggered by my finger, but if I were to trigger it with my finger and do this again, in theory, whoop, I'm doing the wrong one, sorry, the X-axis, it says open. So it's inverting the logic. That was something that somebody asked me earlier today. Essentially what's going on is that they're seeing their Y-axis triggered when their X-axis is triggered, or vice versa. And that means that it might be plugged in backwards. So you'd have to trace your wiring to see if you're backwards or not. The only reason that would happen is if you modified your pins file to be a different pin. So my guess is it's a wiring issue. So I'm going to transition back to VS Code for a second. And I'm going to change this back, and then I'll show you some leveling that I'm doing. Kind of slow, but it's kind of cool. I'm actually experimenting with universal bed leveling, and I've almost teased out all the settings for it. Next, I need to tease out the settings for the other types of bed leveling. So there's 5 types, and I'm trying to understand them all. So if I were to search on bed leveling, I'll show you what I'm working with. So right here we have different types of bed leveling, and right now I'm on UBL, which is right here. There's a bunch of different other types that I'm still working with, but this one I think I finally got a handle on it. Obviously I'm not going to show people how to do it with their display, because displays can vary in a big way. So if you're using a regular LCD display, you can actually see more of the actual functionality of it via the display, whereas the TFT display is somewhat limited at the moment, and that's your touch screen display. So I'm going to reboot the printer real quick here. I'm just going to verify that it loaded. It did, so I'm just going to power cycle it, and then I'll show you the bed leveling. So let me swap over to the workbench with Printerface so you can see what I'm doing. So inside here, there's various types of bed leveling that you can do. And one of the codes that you can use, if I can get back to it here, is G29. But apparently I'm not able to get back to it right away, so let's see if I can find it. Just by using the arrows, I can cycle through and find the type of leveling that I want to do. And I believe that one might be it, but let me check. And I'll show you where I check for this. It's actually in the browser. So I'm going to bring up a browser session in just a second, if I don't already have it here. So let me see what I got for the view before I show you. There we go. So inside here, for G29, which is right up here, we have unified bed leveling. This is UBL, I believe. And then they have a series of commands. So the one that I'm interested in is actually doing the outer edge of bed leveling. I don't remember where it was, but I'll just show you the regular basic one. So let's see if I can find it here. I took notes last night, so it might be a second. So it's G29P1. So I'm gonna go over and show you on the bed what's going on. I just had to move the screen back. So I'm gonna plug in that command. It's gonna show 100 different points, but first I gotta connect. And then paste this command right here. And hopefully this will work. If not, we're gonna have a long day. So there it goes. And I had to set the margins on the bed. So there's a border that you have to work out. And I'm pretty close to getting it right. It's either 30 or 25. But I'm still experimenting with that due to where the actual BL Touch is located. So I'm going to check on the chat while this is going on. So does anybody have any questions about bed leveling for this type of bed leveling? Essentially, it's just mapping the surface with the sensor, and it's going to do 100 points, I believe. Yeah, it's on only the third point, as you can see right here. But it's just mapping out what the bed level looks like, and then you can push it into EEPROM with the M500 and something. But I'm still working out all the information for you guys. So where's everybody from, if you don't mind me asking? If you do mind me asking, then just don't tell me. South Carolina or UK? Yeah, the real confusing one is when people say Georgia. I don't know if it's the country or the state. Yeah, which part of Canada? Is it British Columbia or is it Ontario? So if anybody has any future questions, I want to show you this real quick. Over on my Discord, which is in the chat in the description, you can post questions. There's a little place for YouTube requests, and that way I have an idea of what you're interested in knowing, and then I can make something on it eventually, depending upon the cost, that is. But let me check on the chat here. Oh, you're just right across the lake. Edward. Or E-word. Apparently we don't have a fast ferry anymore, so I can't just come across the lake in an hour and a half, 2 hours. Kind of wish they'd bring back some ferries so that people can go back and forth to Canada on a boat, but apparently that's too big a challenge for both countries. I'm on the opposite side of the lake, so essentially in Rochester. Fun thing about it is to drive to Toronto, it takes, what, 3-4 hours? But you have to drive around the entire lake to get there. Yeah, Rochester, New York. I know there's like 5 Rochesters in the United States, so it can be slightly confusing. So that's the one type of bed leveling. There are others that I want to work with, but unfortunately I haven't had a lot of time to work with them yet. And it looks like it only probed 37 times out of 100, so I'm still trying to understand the actual probing. It does say mesh point, so I might have the wrong type that it's trying to probe. So let's go back and take a look at the browser. Maybe I can figure this out. So inside the browser, let's see if we can find universal bed leveling, because I don't think we did it. It might be that one, actually. So let's see what happens. So hopefully this will give us more than 37. If it works. Actually, that might be save. Let me go back and look. Yes, it says save. That's not useful. Let's see. Mesh points. I thought there was something for universal bed leveling, unless I'm looking at the wrong one. Unified. Move nozzles to bad areas. Activate universal bed leveling system. Try this one. Don't know what's gonna happen. I'll show you what I'm doing in a second. I just want to see if it fails. Apparently it's not doing anything, so that's kind of useless. But let me check on the chat. I guess the advantage to 100 probes is that you get more precision. The disadvantage is the amount of time. Well, actually, with bed leveling, you can actually do it inside your G-codes. You can send the G-code inside Cura. Let me see if I can bring up Cura so you can see it. It's gonna take a second because it's not currently running, so it might take a few seconds to load. Then I gotta put it someplace where you can see it. Do I have a CAD file for these boards? Which board? You mean the one that I'm holding inside the Ender 3? I think there's one on Thingiverse. Let me see if I can find that in a second, but I'll show you first Cura. I just have to align it so you can see it. So here's Cura. Inside Cura, you can actually set your beginning codes. I gotta find them first, though. So they're probably over in here. And then manage printers. And then you're gonna say machine settings, maybe. And then you have your start G codes. This is where you put your G29 right around here. And then you'd close this and save it. And then every time you render inside your G-code file, it would show you how to do it. But the thing that you're asking me for is actually located on Thingiverse, and it's going to take me a second to pull it up so you can see it. So let me pull up Thingiverse real quick here. Gotta log in, so it's gonna take a second. And then I'll put it where you can read it. So if you go here and search on, I think it's eBramen. If not, I can find it another way. These are all my designs. Then there's more down here. So that was my original printer back in... Let's see if I can remember when I did this. This is the Easy Mendel. I'm probably going to do an update of it. Essentially, there's some design changes I want to make in this. Obviously, it looks a lot like a like an Ender 3. I don't think the Ender 3 was out when I designed this. Let's see when it was. Yeah, this was back in 2017. But you can see that they're very similar type printers. One of the things that I'm working on with this was I need to make these simpler for people to work with. So I'm going to probably take out some stuff that I put in originally. I just had to find the files for it. But what you're looking for is probably over here. If I can find it. There we go. Actually, it's probably back on the previous page. Huh. Thought I posted it. Maybe I'm not on the previous page. That's probably why. Just do a quick search. Let's see. That's so weird. Maybe I named it wrong, so let's do SKR. Actually, I got a quicker way to go to this. Let me just pull it up in my browser. Let's see. I gotta find the actual web page. It's gonna take a second. I'm wondering if the link is broken. Or I forgot to hit save on my page. Let's see. It's been a while since I've done this video. The Ender 3 upgrade. In the live stream, dual extruders. I'm gonna pause this for a second. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't post it, it looks like, or I did post it and I just forgot to say where it is. Let me check my playlist. Maybe it's in there. Sorry, I have about 10 different playlists, so it's going to take a second. It should be in my SKR 1.4 playlist. So now I just have to search through it without having it play on me. Sensorless homing, dual extrusion upgrade.
Your design.
Okay, here it is. So I found it and I'll post it in the chat in just a second, I hope, if this site works. Don't know why it's not showing up, but let's see what happens. So here's the actual case. So I might redesign this. I'm still thinking about it. It's obviously a little bit longer and it locks into the rails. But that's the actual design. Let me check on the chat here, see if I didn't lose anybody on that. Yeah, I got the BL Touch working. Apparently there's a issue with being able to use the reserve port, so I moved to the Z-Min. Right now I'm just trying to figure out the settings. Apparently some of the settings are somewhat elaborate, so I think I've got it down to about 10 settings or less. So, random question, maybe a bit of a random question, but recently I put a Bigtree Tech SKR Pro version 1.2 on my Ender. As far as I can tell, everything works fine except the fact that Marlin says there's no media. Well, the no media, depending upon where you're using media from. Are you using a TFT display or are you using a an old LCD display? It's definitely probably related to the firmware, but the question is which type of LCD are you using? Because you can't use the LCD on the board, as far as I know. I'm sorry, not the board, the drive on the board. The one for the TF drive or SD drive that goes with the board. I don't think you can put the files there. You have to do it through a screen. So that would probably be SD card and sound. Let me see if I can pull it up for you. So if you go to VS Code and let me get there. You do a search on SD card. I think we're already there. Yeah. So it's LCD and SD support. You may have to enable SD card support right here, depending upon the LCD that you're using. If you're using the TFT, you might be able to send it directly from there. But I don't have one hooked up at the moment to experiment with, but I think that would be the process. It's just like connecting via a USB port. Essentially, they're exactly the same. You had no idea I had a specific board for which? For the SKR 1.2 or the SKR 1.4? Because they're different form factors. The one that I'm currently built a form factor for is the SKR 1.4. But you can probably do an SKR 1.2 or the SKR Pro 1.2. It's just the wires need to be longer, and I haven't gotten around to extending the wires so I can show those on this board. Oh, you're talking about the PCB or the printed circuit board CAD for this board or for boards? Yeah, TFT, if it's not working, there's a config file as well that you can check. But enabling SD support might help. I don't know for sure on that because I have to test it. But I think you can just send it through your regular TFT display if you're connected. So let's see. Eward, you're asking about a PCB CAD for the boards. So you're talking about Bigtree Tech's SKR CAD file. I think I can show you where it is for the PCB, but let's see what we can do here. So I'm going to bring up the browser in a second. And inside the browser, if you go to Bigtree Tech, I'm just going to show you where I am currently. If you go to the 1.4 folder, they have hardware, and then they have the schematic, and I think they have the file for it here someplace. I don't know exactly if it's the CAD file you're looking for or something else. So let's see what we got here. That kind of looks like the silk screen, but it's not. And that obviously is a schematic, which is not going to make a lot of sense unless you read schematics really well. This is looking like the silk screen. At least the back side of the board, I think. But that's got most of what you're looking for on it. Obviously, I don't make the boards at home. Well, Lucy, you're gonna have to let me know what happens. Just so you know, there's a Discord inside the chat if you have questions. You can always post them there, and I'll try and take a close look at them. In fact, somebody asked me a question today that I still need to take a close look at. But let's see what we got going on here. Sorry, I'm just scrolling around trying to read all the messages. Okay, let's see. In Discord, somebody posted 2 files, so I'm going to pull those down and start them in a different place than I am currently in. So give me a second. So essentially, somebody asked me a question about their board, and they seem to have a overcurrent situation or a overheating situation. So I'm going to pull up the boards in a second just to take a look. And you can see what I'm talking about once I get them open. So I'm going to open up their configuration.h. Hopefully it's theirs. And let you see what I'm looking at. So inside here, I think they're running TMC 2209, so I'm going to search on the A4988 just to get me there quick. And they're telling me that they're overheating. So as you can see, they are running with TMC 2209s. So I know that's not an issue. So the next thing I would need to do to analyze their problem is possibly look at the advanced config. So let me download that real quick and then I'll open it up so you can see what I'm talking about. So hang on, I'm going to switch you to a different screen for a second. Okay, let's see if we can take a look at this. So over here, I'm going to search on 800. I don't remember how to get there quick. So these are the actual steppers that they're using. And their overheating situation probably is related to this right here, where they're increasing the voltage a little bit higher than it should be. Now, they may have computed this to be their high, but probably 750 would be safer for them. So I think that's their issue right there. But you can see that it's in several places. What they're getting is shifted prints. So basically what happens is the motor gets hot and then stops working because there's a thermal situation. So it automatically stops, waits for itself to cool, and then prints again or moves again. So in this case, the thermal situation is stopping their print, but it could be something so instantaneous that you don't perceive it with your eyes until you see the print. But let me check on the chat here. Yeah, the tutorial that you're referring to, I'm not sure if it's one of mine or somebody else's, but if you go to 750 on that, you may have less shifting and the overheating might stop. Yeah, I'm not sure what somebody else did. I know the 800's allegedly the sweet spot, but I like to go to 750 just so it runs a little cooler. But if you can give that a try, for 750, let me know what happens. I'm sure that may resolve or at least mitigate your problem for the moment. So let me check on the questions, make sure I didn't miss anything here. And I'm going to move this back to the printer for a second. So let's see. I'm going to show you guys the Discord just so you understand where it is. So over here we have our Discord. People can ask questions. We're in the general open chat. But if you have ideas for things you want to see me do, you can always do YouTube requests. And then put in here what you're interested in. Just keep in mind that my pocketbook's somewhat limited when it comes to buying stuff. But some of the stuff I might have on hand. I just haven't done tutorials yet on it. And for those that are doing super chats and PayPal, I got a long list of people I guess I got to thank today. So let's see. There's Mike. Thank you for the several tips. That's greatly appreciated. I have to go and open my email real quick so I can figure out who's who. So let's see. Almost there. So last night, I have to thank Laurie. Thank you for the tip. Then of course, I think it's Mike. And somebody else did something this week. Chris. So thank you all for sending me tips via PayPal. It's greatly appreciated. It helps offset some of the hardware costs for setting these up. And I'll probably be buying more equipment this week. I'm probably waiting on several things to be delivered, but I'm holding off until I actually get the deliveries, because if I say I'm going to do something and don't have it, makes it kind of hard. So let's see what's going on in the chat here. What about E? Let me look at that real quick. So for your extruder, you're probably going to want to do the same of 750. Just remember, everything's 750 works for me, at least with the TMC 2208s. I'm not using the 2209s in this particular printer, but I could probably do it if I popped off all the servos, or not servos, end stops. I'll wake up in a minute. But we're getting kind of light on questions today, and I'm going to probably move my car in a couple minutes. So if anybody has any interesting questions that they want to ask that I can address on Friday, we'll be doing another long stream where we talk about the Ender 5. That may be upwards of 2 hours long, so there's probably going to be some questions that you have that I might be able to address while we're doing it. But today I've had a really long day at work, so obviously I can't speak as clearly as I would like. So redo the E-steps. You're probably going to have to recalibrate after you change the settings. Let me check it, see what you got here for your... Hang on, I have to move over to the actual chat and see what the part was for that. So give me a second. So let's see. If I'm looking at your advanced file, let me just bring it up here. And I'll let you see what I'm doing. So if I search on 800 again, there might be something else that I haven't seen. So looking at this, it looks like you're doing the regular stepping. So that's another thing you may want to change. It looks like your E-steps probably should be around 750. Granted, this could vary with your motors. I'm not sure exactly what you're using. But the other thing you can do is you can increase the number of steps that you can go up to 256. Obviously, it's not a noticeable change. But in order to do that, you're going to have to pull up. Hang on, let me get your other file in front of me. So if you search on A4988, oops, let me go back up. Just gets me in the neighborhood of where I want to talk, so I'm gonna have to do that again because I missed it. Oh, let's go down. Apparently, I'm in the advanced configuration file. That's not gonna help. So let's see if I can search on A4988 here. There we go. So if you decide to increase your steps right here, if they're 80, you want to change those to 160. It will run better with EEPROM. So if you go 160 here in your advanced configuration, now I gotta get back to that spot. Give me a second. If you go to 160, you're gonna have to change this number to 32. But you have a range from 0 to 256, so every time you change your other value being... Hang on, I gotta swap over to it. Every time you change... Whoop, it's on a separate screen. There we go. Every time you change this, they're proportional. So 160 would be 32. 320 would be 64 on the other one. So let me bring that back up. This would then change to 64. But you can always bring this down to 750 just to make your life easier. Let me check on the chat here. Okay, well, let me know what happens with that and if it works out. Sorry, I'm trying to look around at things here and my stream is getting all weird on me. So hopefully people still can see the stream. I'm having trouble seeing it myself. But I'm going to sign off for now because I don't know if it just cut out on me. So for those that are watching or able to watch, thank you very much for your time and take care and be safe.